Hey everyone, it's Kenlyn, and this is Soul Talks, Live Your Dharma, and the transmission for Gene Key 27. And Gene Key 27 with the sun in Taurus, and now we're coming up to, as I'm recording this, the full moon in the opposite, right? So when the sun is opposite the moon, we have a full moon, and the sun's lighting the moon up. So that means the programming partner, the opposite of Gene Key 27, is being lit up. So let me presence both of them as the conversation unfolds today to ignite a sense of generosity that is really a superpower. And we're also going to talk about a concept that is a very high spiritual concept called substituted love. That's all inside of Gene Key 27. Gene Key 27 is the healer. It provides the cure and the salve for humanity's wounds. And if you have this in your hologenetic profile, it's really powerful. There's so much to say about it, but I'm going to narrow the scope today to what I'm sharing here. This was the first Gene Key, one of the first that I read that I just started crying as soon as I read it. I do not have it in my hologenetic profile, although we have all 64 codes, but it was really alive in me. And it was alive in me because it's the Gene Key about our transcendence from a species that eats food to survive. Like we'll vibrate at such a higher vibration. And for some weird reason, that like really got me and it really resonated with me. So there's a lot in this. It's about nourishment, it's about healing, and it's called Food of the Gods. And I'll just give you the punchline. Love is the food of the gods. So here we are talking about the shadow of selfishness and the ultimate highest frequency of selflessness, no self, selflessness. That's when we become cognizant of the oneness of what we truly are. And we drop the sense that I am acting as an individual person. Now, it's interesting because a lot of things I've read about enlightenment crossing over, we still retain our individuality, but our consciousness is oneness. That's fascinating and beautiful. Put that into your third eye and manifest that. The programming partner is purposelessness. So we can see how being off your purpose, being not on purpose, having no purpose creates selfishness. And how does that do it? Because the Gene Key says selfishness is from scarcity. It's from that separate self. I got to get everything for me. I got to try to plug the hole inside of me, unconsciously or consciously plug that hole because I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know why I exist. So I'm just going to take up space like on TikTok. I'm going to just take up space scrolling. I'm going to take pictures of myself and put it on social media. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But you can see that when you do it from a certain come from place, it's vacuous and it makes you selfish. And our culture has these avenues that can avail themselves to selfishness. Now, we always have a choice. We can use social media for the good. We can get these kinds of messages out about our collective evolution, our awakening, or we can focus on our shadow and devolve. Because the truth is that we've all been there. So let me just say that clearly about selfishness. I'm not saying it as anything wrong because what we're working with is included and transcended. That's the worldview trajectory. Everything is included and transcended. So that means that when I have a new revelation, a new understanding, and I've worked for it, like I've worked to go up a level, I've done my shadow work, I've been to therapy, I do somatic trauma training, I'm just going to name some modalities, right? I've done parts work. I've gotten in touch with all my parts, the ones that sabotage me, the ones that like to prostitute me. I've gotten in touch with them and there's more coherence and more integration. That's the work working. And when that happens, you actually evolve. And what does that mean? You go up a level, you include what you came from and you transcend it. So you're now no longer selfish in that way, but you understand selfishness. And that's what gives us compassion. So when we're coming from scarcity and we believe that we're a separate self, you can feel that vibration. You can feel the fear that comes up, and you can feel what you want to do as a result, like how you want to fill the hole, what things you want to consume. It really is training us, that shadow band that exists in the collective consciousness is training us to be a consumer. It's training us to be a consumer. And if you know, in my community, I talk about becoming an investor in leaving behind consumerism. We consume things, but we can consume them as an investor. That means choice. That means I choose to do this because of it's going to give dividends back to me. And when it does that to me, that means it does that for others. So ultimately, the game that we want to play, and Gene Key 27 has these codes in it. We want to play the game of elevating the collective, of serving the collective, of being generous for the collective through the way that we're living. But we don't start there. And the reason why we don't start there is because we have too much stuff, conditioning to slough off, to shed. And if you follow the moon cycles, the full moons are shedding times. They're times to see what you haven't seen before and to release that pattern, and then to actively work on creating the habit of releasing that pattern. So the pattern that selfishness breeds can be the selfishness of a person who is kind of narcissistic, kind of or fully narcissistic. It's all about them and they don't care about other people. Kind of like the archetypal politician, the shadow politician that has motives for themselves and not the collective. That's the lower frequency. But even there's also the person who appears to be giving to everyone else. And it's kind of an Enneagram 2 kind of thing where that giving doesn't feel clean. It's giving because there's a hole inside, and there's a pattern that this person developed that says that it's not safe for me to receive. I don't trust people around me to receive, so I'm just going to be the giver. But there's a secret shadow there. It's called an expectation. I better get back. I better get back. Like, I did all this stuff for you, and you better give it back. The other shadow in that is arrogance. I don't need anything. I don't need anything. I'm good. But let me help you. I once had a woman a long time ago, like 15 years ago, I had a woman in my women's circle who came in, and I said, what is it that you would like to give others, and what would you like to receive? And she said, I don't need anything. I'm not here to receive. I've really attained my highest level of spiritual awakening, and I'm just here to help others. And she turned out to be quite a spiritual bully by telling other people where they were off and what they needed to do. And when we formed a council to have a conversation, she was not up for it. So you can tell that that kind of selfishness has arrogance built into it that keeps other people at bay for whatever reason, like tenderness. Like, I really can't hear it. I must construct a story called I am perfect. I know everything, because I'm so cracked inside. I don't want to be hurt. So that's really where the frequency of this gene key is coming from. But we're going to leave that frequency, because I think you understand that the martyr is in there, the overgiver is in there, the people pleaser is in this gene key. Now let's remember, when we leave it, that we have massive healing potential. And sometimes here's what happens. When we discover that we've been an overgiver, a people pleaser. We've been a control freak, like just, I want to give, but I don't want to receive. And then I want to have the stories that I never received. So now I'm a victim. And when we really get clear with that, and we've done our shadow work, we swing to the other side and we're just like, no, it's all about me. I'm not helping anyone. I'm not doing anything. It's all about me. And if you've followed me before, you know that I say we underdo something and then we overdo it. So now we have to swing from this side to this side of the pendulum. And then ultimately, we're going to start coming back into the middle of the pendulum, which is a self-knowing, a self-knowledge of what it is that I'm here to do. So when we move into the gift frequency of this gene key, it's called altruism. What we're very clear on is that we have precious gifts. We have precious life force energy, and we are not here to throw it away. So the gene keys is clear to say that we put our energy in life-giving places. I'm going to say that, and if this resonates with you, write it down. We put our energy in life-giving places. We put our energy where we empower others rather than believing the story of their disempowerment. Because as do-gooders, as people who want to help people from suffering, and we want to stop people from suffering, we can sometimes take things on, and you're going to see how I'm going to transcend this concept in a minute, but I have to presence it because there's a shadow here. And if I don't presence it, we'll never go to the next level. So we have to get really clear that we're not here to save people or rescue them. And we get to notice that in ourselves I've been on this road so deeply that I understand wanting to save people, and that can have arrogance baked in it. It could have martyr baked in it. It can have superhero baked in it. You know, there's lots of different archetypes that I can find inside of that. But the key that has helped me through it is my altruistic service actually life-giving and expanding empowerment, or is it, what's that word? Enabling someone else's disempowered story. And we know this from addiction. Now, this is in the ring of life and death. So to be human, we know this energy, and we know the energy of addiction. And if you have an addicted person in your field, or if you've been addicted, you understand that it can be like a hungry ghost sucking the energy of all the people around you. But it's not life-giving because you haven't made the commitment, or if you haven't made the commitment to actually choose healing, choose wholeness, choose sobriety. So we don't want to throw our energy away. The biblical phrase is cast your pearls in front of swine, which I like animals, but we get the point. Cast our gifts, give them where they're not wanted. We're not going to do that anymore. That is at the gift frequency. We've learned beyond that. We have tamed our patterns. We've seen through them. We now no longer have a payoff helping people of being so righteous and good and trying to help other people help themselves. We now know that actually that's a hole that goes nowhere. It's an abyss. But when someone does say they want help and support, we can totally be there, not to do it for them, but to walk the road with them. Okay, so we got that, right? That feels like it's in the zeitgeist. It's what we're working on with the North Node in Aries. We're working on the I amness. We're working on our power. We're working on ourselves first, serving ourselves first, and giving from our overflow. We got all that down, right? Okay. Can I just blow your minds right now? We're going to go into the next level. We have to go into the next level, not because this is where you should be. I'm not even there. but it's presencing where we're going in consciousness. A part of me knows this and I don't live it. No. So we're not trying to say you have to live it. The gene keys to know the highest expression is to set your third eye there, because what you gaze upon, where you fix the target, is where you'll go. Before we get there, I have to tie in purposelessness, though. I don't think I did a good enough job there. When we have purposelessness, that's what keeps us in scarcity, because we don't know who we are. We don't know why we're here. And so we're feeding the hungry ghost. When we move into altruism, we start to understand what's ours to do and what's not ours to do. And that's Gene Key 40. We talked about the sacred no. Look that up in one of my channels. The sacred no will help you know, like, it's just not mine to do. And when you say it's not mine to do, you actually free up someone else in the cosmos to do it, because God is God, right? God, you don't need to play God. God is God. So Gene Key 28 is the gift of totality and the city of immortality. So this altruism opens us up to the totality, that we are here with all things, and all things are sentient. All things get their divine codes and their instructions from the cosmos, from God, Goddess, from source, the source point of origin. So whatever way that your psyche has took on the role of being God, and I know we say we're God, but that's in a different way. It's a different come from place. When we play God is when we play our arrogance and we play our separation. But here we get to trust, and we know that my sacred no is a yes for someone else. And so we trust staying in our lane, and that has to do with purposefulness. When we are on purpose, when we know why we're here, when we know what we stand for. Okay, so now I can move on to the city of selflessness. And I want to talk about a couple of ways I'm going to get at it is through a concept called substituted love. And this is a Christian concept, and some esoteric scholars, mystical teachers in the Western tradition of Christianity see that Christ, the metaphor of Christ dying on the cross and descending into hell, hell being unconsciousness, like total unconsciousness, greed, hatred, fear, envy, pride, arrogance, victimization, without the light of consciousness, totally dimmed. When Christ descends into that place and brings the light, is the love. The story goes that Christ takes on the sins of the world in order to what? Alchemize them. Alchemize them. Okay, so I'm going to give you a goddess example now, since I gave you a Western religious tradition. It's not accepted in mainline so much. It can be, but it's from the mystical traditions. And this is from the goddess tradition, the Gaia Codex. So if you haven't read this book, read it. We have monthly circles inside of our membership where we talk about this, because why? This book is a new narrative. It activates a new narrative in the divine feminine. And we have to be in community, because the narrative out here is the drift. And I don't know about you, but I've read this 4 times, and I have to, because I have to remember. Otherwise, I go about doing things and I just get pissed off at humanity. I see things I don't like, whatever. I get like heavy in the drift. So I have to keep my third eye on where am I going and why am I here? And this book is the context of that. Coming up, we're going to do an interview with Sarah Drew. I'll put that link there if you want to join us. You can join us just one-off, and then, or you can join the membership and get to be a part of it for free. So inside this book, there's a lead character called Lila Sophia, and she's representative of the human who's going to bring the new codes of the new world. And she has an initiation that she must go through, and she must also remember. I'm not going to tell the whole story, but I'm going to tell you this part where she starts to, in her initiation, she had this total Shakti running through her. And then these boils and sores and pus and blood and tumors started coming out all over her skin. And she started to feel sick and horrible. And it wasn't just physical, her mind was being hijacked by the collective shadow and thinking about horrible things that just would make anyone shudder and not be able to sleep. Just the ways women are raped and kids are brutalized and animals are brutalized and all the things that you and I know is happening. All of it came flooding in, and it was manifesting through her body in these cancerous, canker sore, pus-like sores. And she knew that she had to tune in for the medicine. And this is Gene Key 27. This is totally the activation of Gene Key 27, the healer, the alchemist healer. She knew that she had to take on the sins of humanity, the sins of the world, the crimes against the feminine in her body. And remember, we're playing a high game. This is not child's play. You can't do this shit if you're codependent. You can't do this shit if you're a martyr. You cannot. You can't do this stuff if you don't know where funny enough, you can't do this stuff if you don't know who you are, if you don't know where you end and someone else begins. Yes, we're oneness, but if you don't know yourself and your separation, like, see, everything is a paradox. Truth is always a paradox. Like, we point. But if you don't know yourself, this is where the North Node is in Aries is activating us, because we have to know ourselves in order to move, to include and transcend that level of self-absorption. We have to. So it's a necessary piece. So what she does is she has to tune into her codes, tune into her memory of healing. It's already there. There's nothing she needs. Tune into the memory. One of her sisters is able to touch her hand and heal it, because her sister carries the vibration and frequency of that, but she has to find it herself, because she is the one chosen for this assignment. And we've all had that moment in a past life where we've been chosen for this assignment. And in our way now, we know that each of us is chosen right now. It's not a matter of one person. It's a matter of the codes being in each of us. And in our own way, experiencing this metamorphosis of taking on the sins of the world and alchemizing it. But we have to remember, it's a training. We remember, it's either going to take us down or we're going to remember. And we're going to let the codes of healing, the codes of love, the codes of compassion, the codes of witness, like Characlo, the asteroid. She is said to be the wife of Chiron. Chiron could not heal himself, but Characlo could heal Chiron. And how does she heal? She's the divine feminine. She heals through witness, her presence. She doesn't need anything else. It's her presence. I see you. When you're deeply, deeply seen, you don't even need words, you heal. So that's what happens when you deeply see yourself. You move out of purposelessness. You embrace the totality of what you're experiencing. Nothing gets pushed away. You allow that to come in and you alchemize it. And that's how you get to the siddhi, SIDDHI, the highest frequency of immortality, the highest frequency of no self, selflessness. You are no self. We need to sit with that for a minute. This is the high teaching. And like I'm saying, you don't worry about whether you embody it, because if you try to embody it, it's just a shadow trying to be good. Blah. We don't do that. It's just setting it in our drishti, that, wow, you know what? There's a time coming when I'm going to be fully who I am, wholly who I am, on purpose. And when I am that, those sins, the wounds, that's what I call sin, the wound, the unconsciousness, can run through me. And I will alchemize it through the codes that I'm aware of, that I'm noticing, that I know are here. I'm activated in them. I'm activated in the healer code. I'm activated in the miracle worker code. I'm activated in my mystical teacher code. I'm fully activated. And that then sets the healing motion, the healing in motion. And at that moment, here we go. This is the teaching. We can wrap up here with Christ, Gaia Codex. What happens in that moment is you know yourself to be the collective. You are not outside of it as a healer, as a perfect person, as someone who did that thing. You are inside the face of God. Inside the face of God. As is everyone else inside the face of God. And so you are no thing. You are selfless. You have a sense of the self, but you are selfless because you are connected to the collective. And that's your immortality, Gene Key 28 programming partner. So this is what's being lit up in this sun in Taurus, the full moon in Scorpio. And there's your transmission for this week. May all beings benefit from the merits of our efforts. Thanks for listening.